Hello, welcome to today's HR Huddle. I'm Tamera Loerzel, and with me is Samantha Mansfield. And we are glad that you are joining us today or at a later date to listen in. And we thought we would spend a little bit of time today talking about bringing people hope. And we've been talking about some of the fear that's happening and some of the anxiousness that people are feeling, partly because it's peak periods. And we talked about Jennifer and I talked about not using the word busy and busy season and the connotation that those words have versus let's change our language to peak periods. And we were talking last week as a group, and one of the things we were discussing is, how can we bring our people hope? And so when Sam and I were talking, Sam said, I think that needs to be our topic for our HR Huddle today. And I think it's a good follow on. And I think we'll empower HR professionals, talent leaders, partners, and managers as we think about what we're doing to bring people hope, or opposite. What are we doing maybe to perpetuate some fear or anxiety or overwhelm or concern? Those might be strong words. Maybe it's concern. And what could we do to really engender hope? And as leaders, I think I'll start here, Samantha, is as leaders, I think that's one of the things people look to for their leadership is to be positive, be hopeful, be can do, be we've got this. And at the same time, it's not Pollyanna or fake. We are also addressing, hey, we do have some, deadlines coming up. We've got a high volume of work, but we've made changes in our technology and in our people, and this is how we're going to manage it. And so, talking about strategies for doing it. So not addressing it, not being real about it, but not being scaredy or fearful or wringing our hands. They want to look to a leader that's going to say, hey, we've got this, let's move forward. And here's how, and what ideas do you have, and how do we generate it? And so I think that's like the first place to start is, really, who are we being about, different things that, are happening either in our firm or in our organization, or maybe in our community or in our nation. And you're just saying, what actions can we take? What is the language we're using? How can we be, positive and move forward and bring people with us, while being transparent and straight, at the same time. So I'll pause there. Samantha, what would you add to the setup, or where do you want to go next with that?
Well, I like where you are starting us, because as leaders, people are watching your demeanor. They are listening to that word choice, and they're watching your actions. And I really appreciated that you highlighted, it doesn't mean that you're being disingenuous. It doesn't mean that everything's always happy and gay. Like, that's not what we're saying, right? But what we are saying is that when we start looking at what's going on, we can oftentimes frame it around, is this a threat or is this an opportunity? Let's take artificial intelligence as an example. You mentioned, technology can create different reactions in people. Some people get anxious about what this means for their job. Maybe they're just anxious because I don't feel like I'm very tech oriented. And if this is going to become so important, they're just scared about, can I even figure this out, or does this displace me? Right. Whereas other people take the approach of saying, hey, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity where maybe I can lessen my workload. And this is an opportunity where maybe we can serve clients more, or I get to interact with clients more because it's going to perform more work for me, not perform, create more work for me. Make sure I'm clear on that one. But the point is that as a leader, that's where it's so valuable to be thoughtful on, how am I framing what I'm about to say? Am I framing this in a positioning where this comes across as a threat? Or am I framing this of, yeah, there's a lot changing. And yeah, some of this could be unnerving because we don't know the full impact, but here are opportunities that we see. And so you're starting to interject and you're framing it around a more hopeful viewpoint. And you can still talk about the unknowns. And I think that's the other piece with everything that you said of not being Pollyanna and saying, here's what we're going to do. There are going to be times that you don't know. And saying that we don't know is not a negative.
Right.
It makes you very relatable, and it helps to build trust, because now what are you going to do to demonstrate that we're listening, or that we're going to scout out more information to be able to figure out the rest of the details? So I really liked that, and just wanted to say that that framing of the way that we position and present things to the team really makes a huge impact.
Yeah. Yes. And I think one of the things to pay attention to is, what do we have control of?
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes that fear comes from a feeling of lack of control, fear of the unknown, fear of the uncertainty. And a lot of it's projected, like we don't know what the future is going to bring.
Mm-hmm.
And then we anticipate the negative, and that causes fear and concern and worry and all of that. And so we have to step back and say, okay, what do I have control of? Because then that can start to say, okay, what actions can I take?
Mm-hmm.
And that can give you a sense of control back, but it also can progress you forward.
Mm-hmm.
So, as an example, I could be fearful about an upcoming deadline. Let's just say the March 15th deadline. And we can say, well, what do I have control of? Well, I have control to know, what we have from our clients. We have control to know what our schedule is. We have control to know what we're producing every day and weekly, and setting team goals. I have control of resetting expectations with clients, managing timelines with them, which often we can do a better job of, and, let them know, we need to have your stuff by this date in order to move things forward. And so what could I do? Often, if you can hear this, it's getting in communication with people. So what do I need to communicate? What do we need to say? What recaps do we need to write? And make sure we're being coordinated about that, and then being real, and do reset expectations, or do recast timelines, or do make requests, make powerful requests. And most of the time, people, are willing to collaborate and work together on that. I was, watching some, accounting channels, out in social media, and there's just concern about, what is happening, with the IRS, and what's happening with the tax legislation, and what can I control there? I can communicate what we know, and as we know, don't wait until we have all the answers, because your clients are probably worried. Your team is, who owns, following that up. I can make phone calls to my representatives and let them know what I need and how it's impacting me. So there's things we can do to get in action that we do have control of. And so if we focus on that, it's hard to be anxious and worried over here when I'm in action instead. And so that might be a thing to then talk to your team about. What can they control? What can they do? What, do they need to communicate? So that, I think that can help reduce some of that fear and hand wringing that might be going on.
Well, and if you have a propensity that you're struggling with seeing what is the action that I can do, right? Whether it's deadline shifting, or I was just talking to a coachee at the end of last week that he's like, I literally just finished deadlines from a hurricane extension at the 1st of February.
Yes.
And now they're rolling right into this year's tax return, and it feels overwhelming. And that's where, if you're struggling with how do I see the opportunity, or what adjustments do we make this year, we got to make adjustments. We can't just do that to our team, right? HR let's have that conversation. We had an unusually crazy year. So what do we do about that? But use your network, use your fellow leaders, use colleagues to say, gosh, how do I get into action on this? What could we do? Because sometimes you yourself may be feeling that overwhelm, and it's okay to use your network to help you come up with those ideas. And, you were just sharing some of those, Tamera.
Yeah.
And what I would also say is a big thing that you can control is your word choice. And that makes a huge difference. It can, one, change your own mindset. It can help you to look to the positive. with really focusing on what those words are. So, example, as we're looking ahead, and I think of again my coachee from last week. Am I going to thrive this season, or am I just trying to survive? That
Right.
completely different mindset of how I'm going to go into this season, right? And to thrive, I am going to make some changes. And there are some conversations with clients that we need to have. And we're going to set some different expectations that there's going to be more on extension and all of that. But that's okay. That's not a fail. And so even just thinking of an example like that, or I also thought when you mentioned the HR huddle from last week, Tamara, about the whole busy season versus peak,
Mhm.
that right there speaks to
Right.
it. Busy season instantly just makes us feel maybe worn down,
Right.
right? I've
Right.
got 3-4 months of busy season. But if we say this is peak, then what we can emphasize there with peak is this is when we're in demand, right? This is when we get to really shine. It doesn't mean that we have to be overwhelmed or overload our schedules. We have all different topics to help with all of that. But peak, this is our time that we really shine and when clients really need us. And let's embrace this peak time and realize this is not what the whole year is like. So those are just a couple of examples of even word choices that I think we can throw out there and not really even realize the full impact
Right.
that can have in our mindset.
Yeah. Well, and I'll add to that, we are in a critical profession by nature, right? So we are reviewing and we're supposed to find, things that could get us in trouble or that are wrong. We want accuracy and all of that. So we could be overly critical with team members and even in our communication with clients. But just let's talk about team members for a minute. And instead, we want to acknowledge and reward positive behavior,
Yeah.
positive results, strengths. You and I talked about, like, are we focusing on strengths or weaknesses? Now, I do need to improve my weaknesses, be aware of them. Good leaders do that as we develop. But also I can know that I can complement them. So I was just talking to a coachee and she's a, visioner and she's a framer. She's not a detailed person,
Mm-hmm.
but somebody on her team is, so she has her in on the project with her. Like, how do we complement, those strengths? How do we reinforce and, give good positive feedback and, be able to reinforce what is good? And sometimes, we have people say to us, Sam, why do I need to reinforce them doing their job? Because I want them to continue to do it. Number one. Number two, because if they don't know that they're doing it right, especially like our staff and interns and, new seniors, they're going to go try something else and you'll go, why did you stop doing that? Well, because I didn't know if it was correct. So how do we reinforce the results and the good behavior and the communication? And like, we could make a list, right? And so how do we really reinforce that and focus on that positive reinforcement so we get more of it and can build on it? Plus, it's more energizing. It's uplifting. It's fulfilling. I feel like I'm doing my job and contributing and making a difference. And so I think that's part of word choice as well.
100%. Yeah, I was thinking that too, that feedback. And again, big proponent, we can't only give the positive feedback. So don't mishear us on that, right? You said it. We got to know what we have to go work on. So we're not saying only give the positive. But I think there are an awful lot of, especially managers and leaders, that they're so focused on just trying to get everything functioning better that we focus too much on recognizing the weaknesses or what needs to be improved. And so to dovetail on what you were just saying too, Tamara, I think one of the other pieces with letting people know what we see as their strength, and then we can empower them to figure out how to use it more.
Right.
And when we have our team members who are self-aware of their strengths and allow them to use it, which might mean they do things a bit differently, which might mean that they take a different approach in a communication or a way that they approach a client or whatever it might be. But what you actually do is we start to build a stronger team,
Mhm.
because now we have people using those strengths. And then that's what you were just saying is, well, if I'm not strong in this, I can bring somebody else up.
Right.
But if we only give the feedback of trying to get everybody doing exactly the same and not really looking and acknowledging where somebody has a strength, and maybe that means we create a new job description. Maybe that means, we reorganize these teams a little bit so that people truly can be leveraging those strengths. It's incredible to see the morale as well as the productivity that we can truly generate. And so I just thought that that is another nuance to what you were saying of how it's important that we actually identify strengths in people and then talk to them about it. So
Right.
maybe even going beyond the, hey, you did a really wonderful job in that client meeting or whatever it might be specific, but actually then talking to them, I really notice you light up when you're with a client. You have a strength there. How could we leverage that more? And have those conversations. And I know for some of your people, right now is not the time you get to have that conversation, but that's not true for everybody, right? You have client accounting advisory services that they're out of their peak. We're past January, marching into March. That's a great time to be able to talk with them. Sometimes we also think at this time of year as we can't have this kind of conversation with anybody. And that's not true. That's a way we can divide up HR's workload too, and get into some of those development conversations with people.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. The other thing I was thinking about, Sam, is this idea of hope. And I'm a Ted Lasso fan. And one of the sessions, they were about to go play Man City and they hadn't won against them in decades. And so they were being very hopeless. And Ted Lasso had identified, here in the UK, you have this saying, hope will kill you. And it's very defeatist. And he's like, I don't think I like that phrase very much. And I want to have hope and I want to believe and I want to picture what a possible outcome is.
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing. And again, it's not like ingenuous. It's what do we envision is the best possible outcome?
Yeah.
And how can we say that out loud and get aligned as a team? And then again, we can see possible actions, possible things that we can do, our mindset shifts.
Yeah.
You go out into that field and you're hopeless, like we're not going to win. You're not going to play your best game. So if I'm going to go into peak period to survive, and I saw some posts like that last week, I just shook my head, survive busy season. I'm like, stop posting those things. Stop branding our profession that way. We have a pipeline shortage. But at the individual level, it's hard to perform at our best if that's our phrase. So instead, I want to envision what's the best possible outcome. Yeah. And if it's our clients get us our stuff on time, it's that, we are able to produce the work daily that we need to produce and their interdependencies are working smoothly. We're in communication with each other. Then we can now start taking those actions to do that. And so visioning, I think, is important, and visioning as a team, visioning as an individual, visioning as a team, talking about what that is, put it out in the universe. It does align, it will come together then if that's what we're putting out in the universe, but you'll get some of that power back as well. And so anyway, I thought that was kind of a fun, description, that Ted Lasso uses. He's full of all kinds of leadership ideas, by the way. If you ever need a really good series to watch, I highly recommend it or rewatch it because he can bring you hope. But that hope will kill you. I was like, yeah, no, not at all. It's like hope is inspiring. What are we hoping for? And what am I picturing for myself? What am I picturing for my team, my clients, our community, our nation? And then how can we move forward with that?
I love that. Well, when you first said Ted Lasso, the quote I went with that I thought was applicable to this is be a goldfish.
Yes, that too.
And what we mean by that is goldfish have a memory of about 3 seconds. And so what we're saying is that in being hopeful, we got to let go of some of those grudges, some of those things that somebody did this to me 3 tax seasons ago. And, I'm still bothered, or I still don't trust them. And that's where we control it. We control that we're still hanging on to that. And we control rebuilding and extending that trust. So that's another one that we can really embrace. And it cracks me up that you even said that, because I was having some time with some of my friends this weekend, and we had that exact conversation. And we were talking about work challenges, and we brought up, be a goldfish. Just gotta shake it off, let it go. Let's find a new path forward with our team and how we're communicating, instead of carrying all those memories, all that grudge, all of that with us. That really does wear us down. It does nothing for us, and we're not getting into action, and we're not finding hope.
Yeah.
So that was what I thought of when you
Love
started
it.
that path.
Yeah. So Ashley's out here saying we should do the whole peak period on Ted Lasso leadership ideas. And Caroline, we need to put Sarah's blog out here. Yes. And there might be others that we can link to it, but for sure that one, because they're easy pick-me-ups, gets us focused and centered. And I think that's the thing, Samantha, all of this that we've been exploring this afternoon is really, who are we going to be as leaders, and how do we move from fear and stress and hand wringing to hope and action and communication, and envisioning what we see as possible and how we'd really like this to go, because that is then where you can make a plan, and your people will be inspired, your clients will appreciate the communication, and they'll know that they're taken care of. And that's really what it's all about. So,
and one last thing I'd like to say, because we've referenced leaders, everybody can influence this.
Yes.
So no matter what your role is, you can be an influencing factor, and you take on even just a couple of these things that we said, and there will be a ripple effect in different groups. And so I just want to encourage that it doesn't have to come from the top down. Everybody can influence this feeling of hope.
Yes. Great. And if you have ideas or strategies or thoughts about this, we would love to hear them. So share them with us. And we look forward to seeing you on next week's. Actually, we're going to be on break next week for HR Huddle, because our strategic planning, our team will be together. And so we'll see you in 2 weeks. And if you have ideas for topics like the Ted Lasso, on a whole session on that, you just let us know if there's any topics you want us to bring to this HR Huddle discussion, and anything talent related. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great week.
Thank you.